Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me for a few minutes here as we discuss what type of distance learning is best. There's been a lot of decisions that we make of why we do what we do, but we don't always take the time to explain them. So we thought this would be a good opportunity for me to just share a few of those reasons why we're doing what we're doing. You might have asked these questions too, and we kind of thought of these questions as well as we were discussing them. The first question was, why does learning look so different now that it's home? Um, Perhaps maybe you're looking at this picture at the bottom here. And maybe that was the thought that came to your mind when we talked about doing distance learning. Why can't we just keep everything the same? The teacher is in front, the students on the computer watching the teacher teach, they're diligently taking notes. I think that's the ideal that we probably had in mind when we were thinking that we're going to have to be learning online and at a distance. I think we came to realize that while that sounds really great, in practice, it doesn't really happen that way, and there's a lot of challenges that come with that. So that kind of took us in a different direction of how we wanted to handle the distance learning aspect of things. There were some obstacles that I just wanted kind of to share about that. So there are many reasons why this doesn't work out well at a distance. The first one, and probably the most important one, is just the lack of student engagement that you would have online versus in person. In person, the teacher can view all the students at once and kind of adapt their lessons based on the kind of the body language of the students, on just ways that they're responding to the teacher. You're not going to quite get that as well with the computer. A lot of times the student could be mentally disengaged, but there's going to be no signs of that. And there just isn't as strong of a discussion. The teacher just doesn't hold the presence that they do online as they would in a classroom. And sometimes there's challenges of doing that in a classroom as well, but definitely are able to be mitigated a lot better in person. So there would be a lot of students who would be disengaged. They might be present on the Zoom meeting, but they would be disengaged and not really learning things. Sometimes students actually prefer it this way because they can just sit back and relax and be lazy. But we felt that we wanted a little more of an active student in the learning role. There would be some technical difficulties. We actually experienced them during our regular meeting times too. There's almost always one or two that for some reason technically they can't get on at that time, or there's just some major glitches. There are also times when our voices with Zoom just aren't being heard very well, even teachers' voices. And we thought trying to teach for multiple hours in a day doing that would just be causing some major issues as well. There's challenging family schedules too, especially with all that's going on right now. We got a lot of families with two parents working, and grandparents are trying to help out, or babysitters are trying to help out. And trying to do that and get everybody logged on and make everything run really well would just not really work out in that live setting where you have to be on at a certain time. And there's very few differentiation opportunities, whereas when we supply learning materials, we actually could kind of differentiate based on the interests and abilities of the kids. With everyone just being on one live Zoom meeting, it's kind of hard to do that, and you can't really read the room to know how to differentiate. So yeah, that quote that kind of came to mind here, we saw that and we were like, this is very fitting, that a direct copy of face-to-face instruction using online tools will surely fail. And I think there are some short-term things that you could do. I think like right now our pastors are doing catechism that way, and when it's like 40 minutes or less, that'll work just fine. When you try to do that for 2 to 3 hours, that's when you're really going to be running into some issues. So the alternative, and this is kind of a big word, but it's been a very commonly used word in the education world lately, especially, is asynchronous learning. Asynchronous just means that learning is not happening at the same time, that the time is going to be varied. So what that is and what we've been doing is where the teachers will create their learning experiences for the students, and then the students then will get communicated to the students, and then the students have the power or the option, and families have the option to set their learning pace and set their learning times that will work best for their family, because every family's got a little bit of a different situation. So what are the benefits of asynchronous learning? Well, the first one is flexibility. So just like we mentioned that, families all have different situations going on right now, especially the ones with younger students where they're going to need a little more support with their instruction. So having that flexibility to do that work anytime instead of saying, no, you must get on at this time and must be learning at this time, really is a benefit to a lot of our families. The pacing can be a little bit different for every child too. what's nice about these video lessons that the teachers create is that the students can tune on at any time, and then if they're not getting it the first time, they can rewind and watch it again. And if they're still struggling, that's when they can work a little more with the teachers and things like that too. So having those tools that are available to rewind, to play it again, to slow it down, to go back to a certain spot where they're having a little bit of trouble, that pacing ability that you have asynchronously, you can't really do that. You can't really, I mean, you can force everyone to stop during a lesson and slow down for one person or two people, but then that might frustrate some of the other people in the class as well. The other big thing too that sometimes goes unnoticed is the high quality tools. So with this asynchronous learning, you have teachers creating video lessons, for example, and here would be a few examples of those that'll be on the screen right here. So what's nice is that the teachers can embed a lot of like multimedia functionality to these tools, either in their videos or just these links that they're providing to the kids to complete for tasks. And what's nice about that is when it's interactive like that, and when it's a teacher's voice and things like that, the students actually stay more engaged than they would during a live session. And I've experienced that actually as a teacher when I made videos for my kids, even during normal times. It seems like they pay attention to the video better than that you made with your voice than they would if they were listening to you live. Sometimes when you're live, you get a little more distracted. There are some drawbacks to asynchronous learning that we had to address as a staff. The first one was isolation. That's the idea that, when you are working together synchronously, there could be a little bit more of a together feeling, and you're going to be missing that with asynchronous learning where we're learning at different times. So how do you mitigate that? Well, we talked, and the best way to do that was just to still get together as a class. Maybe not to do learning, but to do some things socially. So our students, no matter what grade level, will be gathering together daily. That's where they get that time together to talk to their classmates. That's when a devotion is given by the teacher. That's where they get to also preview assignments and things like that too. But then also a lot of classrooms are offering, especially the older ones, are offering social time where just students can log on and be together with their classmates too. Lunchtime is a very popular time for a lot of classes to do that. And students are even able to play games with each other, have little things like, I think one of the classrooms, it's like a stuffed animal dance party, things like that. Just a great idea for families to still stay together and the students to stay together. The other drawback that can happen with asynchronous learning is, well, I got all day to do this, and then what happens is we sometimes maybe get a little bit lazy, or there's just some apathy about the work. That definitely can be minimized though if you do it well. The big things to minimize that would be quick teacher feedback on completed work that is completed and not completed, and quick needs to be emphasized. That's why a lot of us are using electronic delivery, I guess as you could say, or submission of work on Seesaw. So that same day, usually within hours, teachers are responding, teachers are accepting or showing students that they need to get some work done yet. And then often it's really important to have that live feedback too. So students and teachers are meeting online regularly, sometimes scheduled meetings where they are having time where they can go over the students' work and say, here's what you did well here and here's what you can improve. And then often teachers are scheduling hours of time for office hours where students can log on at any time. The teacher's just sitting there on Zoom waiting for students to log on. Whenever they have a question on math or if there's a question on any other subject where they're struggling a little bit, that's the time when they can be meeting with those teachers to get some clarification. Just some final encouragements to leave with you. The first one's kind of a big one. Don't put too much pressure on yourself during these times. We all understand that many families have different situations, and that our job is to be teachers, and your job is to be more of a supporter. So don't put too much pressure on yourself that you are the one that has to make sure your child learns. My big emphasis would be to make sure you know when your child's office hours are or your teacher's office hours are, and use them. We've heard sometimes where a kid might be struggling with an assignment, and the parent will send a text to the teacher, hey, they're really struggling. And the teacher will say, well, they haven't logged on in office hours the last 2 days. Make sure they use me. I'm available to help them out. Please use them. So that's the important thing. Don't put too much on the parents. Understand too that your child is still learning and growing, that there might not be learning and growing in the exact same way, but there actually could be some ways that they're going to be growing even more during this time than they would normally be in school. I think one of the big things would be independence in their learning. They're able to take some tools and do some learning on their own, and then also just executive functioning, being able to work from a list and create a list even of things that they need to do for themselves. That's a skill that sometimes gets taught in school, but often when you have the teachers or maybe the parents kind of hounding, that won't happen as much. And that's a long-term benefit that they're going to get from that. Most importantly, though, please keep you and your family connected to Jesus. Um, it's a time when there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of anxiety, and I think in these uncertain times, there is a certainty that Jesus provides us. That certainty is that he loves us no matter who we are, and he died on the cross for us, and that salvation is ours through that free gift of him dying on the cross. That things are going to get better, that Jesus loves you and cares for you. So make sure that you are tuning into these worship services that are going on. Make sure your families are able to watch the chapels. Our pastors are actually putting on some daily video devotions every day on our YouTube channel. Really important piece, though, is also just the family devotion. This is a great time. You're spending more time with your family, probably. Make sure that those times are spent in some family devotions as well. There's maybe a reason why we have this situation. Let's take advantage of it. Let's stay in God's word. If you have any questions, make sure to email me. My email is listed at the bottom. Looking forward to the next few weeks here as we wrap up the school year and a few fun events that we'll be having at the end of the year.